What is going on, everybody? I am back today to talk about a movie that is finally available on VOD. That, to be quite honest with you, I had virtually no interest in seeing. I saw this trailer so many times at the theater, and I just found this trailer to be so incredibly grating and obnoxious. And obviously, this is a sequel to a pretty beloved film from the 1990s with a really great cast. And it's not a perfect movie to me, but it's a lot of fun and I really enjoy the characters in it. And so I was hoping that with liking the original that, Glen Powell, he's really charming. I've really enjoyed him. I liked him in Linklater's Hitman movie. I enjoyed him in Anyone But You. I didn't think that movie was great by any means, but I thought he brought a lot to the table with his performance. And so that was enough for me to be interested. And also, this film is directed by the same director as Minari, which is a movie that I really loved in A24's catalog. I thought it was beautiful, had a really great performances. And so I was hoping that the director of this movie would be able to at least add that emotional core or do something to make this an engaging and entertaining watch. And the film I'm going to be discussing with you today is Twisters. Twisters is directed by Lee Isaac Chung. As storm season intensifies, the paths of former storm chaser Kate Carter and reckless social media superstar Tyler Owens collide when terrifying phenomena never seen before are unleashed. The pair and their competing teams find themselves squarely in the paths of multiple storm systems converging over central Oklahoma in the fight of their lives. So as I said, wasn't super excited to watch this movie, but because of the director involved, Glen Powell, a lot of the other talent involved in the film, I was looking forward to seeing it in hopes that I would enjoy it. And this movie is a heaping pile of garbage. I hated this movie. It's probably up there with one of the worst things I've watched this year. It does not feel like a movie. I've been seeing a lot of jokes recently about movies that feel like they're completely and totally AI generated. And that is exactly what this film felt like. It felt like someone went into a system and said, "Computer, write a screenplay for a sequel to the original Twister film." And this is what they came up with. It is so poorly acted. Not even Glen Powell gives a particularly interesting performance in this movie. The delivery of the dialogue is so laughable. The forced emotionality is like cringeworthy, and not even in like a charming 90s way, where a lot of those 90s movies came across as relatively schlocky, but they were entertaining. This is just bad. It's like it feels so kind of grimy, cash grabby in a way that's just so unappealing to someone like me. Like, if you're gonna make a sequel to something, I think the perfect example this year, not a sequel but a prequel, is The First Omen. That is a film that is its own thing. Despite being attached to a previously existing property, it has a vision, it has a style, it has something that it's trying to achieve, and it does so really excellently. It's a movie I have not stopped thinking about since I watched it. This movie does none of that. It is just devoid of anything special, and I'm going to talk about it in detail when I break the whole movie down. So at the beginning of the film, we're introduced to Kate, played by Daisy Edgar-Jones, who is a storm chaser, and we see her at the beginning of the film go through this horrible tragedy surrounding a tornado where she lives. And we jump forward in the future 5 years. She's working for this news station in their meteorology department, and she's contacted by her old friend Javi, played by Anthony Ramos, who was one of her friends that worked during that tragedy surrounding that tornado incident. And he says, "Hey, I'm working for this scientific organization that they're trying to find ways to like stop these tornadoes. There's this technology that exists that they're able to like shoot this up and prevent these tornadoes from happening." And that's what Kate was working on previously, but failed, and they weren't able to make it accomplishable. And he says, "We really think we're on to something here. We really want you to be a part of this team." And so she reluctantly agrees to join his team, go to Oklahoma to chase these tornadoes again. Well, while she's there, she's introduced to Tyler, played by Glen Powell, who has this entire team that chases tornadoes with him. And he's very much like Steve-O, Johnny Knoxville, jackass style guy, drives this really goofy looking truck, has a YouTube channel, very much like good old boy redneck type of dude that's running this YouTube channel and stopping these tornadoes. And Kate is really off put by him at first, but slowly starts to learn that he really puts his money where his mouth is, and the proceeds they make help all these victims of tornadoes and these families that have suffered and lost their houses. And so throughout the film, her perspective is changing on his character, and the entirety of the film is Kate and Tyler trying to figure out ways to stop these tornadoes so that families and people in these communities will not be impacted. So as I said, I thought this movie was terrible. I legitimately don't have really anything nice to say about the movie because it was 2 hours of just grating, obnoxious dialogue. And honestly, it's not very well shot, and I didn't think visually that it was all that compelling or suspenseful. Most of the scenes with the tornadoes, outside of the third act, which I did enjoy some elements of it, I felt like the editing was incredibly jarring, and there was a lot of moments that I just felt like it was really sloppy the way it would cut back and forth between characters, where we weren't fixated long enough on seeing the tornado or the destruction that it causes. Like, a lot of it is set around like seeing the aftermath and the things that the tornado has done. And so it makes for a relatively bland experience. The performances here are awful. I really did not like Daisy Edgar-Jones in this movie, which is surprising because I think she's really talented. But like, what was her accent in this movie? It felt like she was trying to go Southern in moments, but other times she didn't have it, and it was kind of like a bounce back and forth that felt relatively unnatural. The opening sequence in this movie felt like something out of a really bad sci-fi original film, like if you were going on the Sci-Fi Channel, like a super low budget, really poorly put together movie. Like, the dialogue just felt like people reading off of a piece of paper, and in the worst way possible. Like, the chemistry between these characters is just so poorly done. Nothing felt natural or authentic. I didn't care about any of these characters. And the big reason for that is there's poor characterization throughout the entire movie. Like, Glen Powell's character, the only real characteristic he gets is that he's misconstrued because he seems like this dumb redneck, but he's really spending money to help these families and do something with a just cause. But there's not really much else to his character that makes him interesting to watch. He just constantly is yelling these really obnoxious one-liners that aren't charming or entertaining. Daisy Edgar-Jones's character just feels kind of like a background character to pull back around to so that you can feel some kind of emotional weight about the loss that she experiences. But it's like so hammy and like a Hallmark movie way. It's not natural. And the thing is, with those 90s movies, like the original Twister, if you're playing into camp, there's a way that you can do it that even if like the emotion feels artificial, there's like a charm to it. But because these characters cannot deliver dialogue in a way that feels natural or authentic or like they're living this role, it just is grating. It's like you're just watching people at a bad high school performance. And I just kept getting pulled out because of that. I didn't care about anything. There's so many meandering scenes of characters just doing nothing or pointless dialogue that doesn't really get you anywhere. And then whenever you'd get bored, it would jump straight back into woohoo, let's chase another tornado, because you're clearly not invested in anything that's going on screen. And it was just like lowest common denominator garbage that I was just so annoyed by. And just like everything about these characters was grating. I hated the soundtrack to this movie. It was just like blaring country music over every scene. And it was like, the thing is, you can utilize country music in a movie and make it work. But in this, it was just like, hey, you remember you're in the South? Hey, you remember you're in the South? Like, that's all it was doing. It was just like trying to reiterate to you that you were in Oklahoma. It didn't provide any suspense. It didn't do anything to accentuate the mood or the tone in any specific scene. It was just annoying. It was like picking popular country songs to blare over a scene to introduce a character. It just became so awful. And what surprised me is Lee Isaac Chung made Minari, which is a movie that has such a deep, beautiful, emotional core, examining these characters that have immigrated to the United States of America. And like, clearly this is a movie trying to accomplish something very different. But he was very capable of creating emotional dynamics in that film that felt real and they felt authentic. Everything in this felt so artificial in a way that was painful to watch. And I just hated everything about this movie. I could not wait for it to be over. And I will never watch this again. I have no inkling. I have nothing about this movie that I want to revisit it. It was a miserable watch. And I guess if you want to watch like a sequel to a beloved 90s movie that feels like it was written by artificial intelligence, then you can check out Twisters. So have you seen Twisters? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was horrible. It's one of the worst movies I've seen all year, and I would not recommend it to anyone. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.